Hey, stop right there. The voice cut through the quiet hum of the private terminal like a blade. Marcus and Michael Williams froze mid-step, leather bags still in hand, just 10 feet from the gleaming glass doors that led to the tarmac. A stocky airport officer in a Navy uniform strode toward them, hand raised, face twisted in suspicion. "Where do you think you're going?" Marcus turned slowly, eyebrows raised. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We're boarding this jet." The officer stopped 3 feet away, eyes scanning them from head to toe. The tailored suits, the expensive watches, the confident posture. His lip curled. "Sure you are." Behind him, other staff members turned to watch. Whispers started. Phones came out. Michael adjusted his bag strap and met the officer's gaze evenly. "Is there a problem, sir?" The officer crossed his arms. "Yeah, there's a problem." He pointed at the sleek silver Gulfstream G650 waiting outside, engines purring softly. "That jet? That's for real passengers, not people trying to sneak onto private property." Marcus exchanged a glance with his brother. Confusion, disbelief, but no anger. "Not yet. We have boarding passes," Marcus said quietly. The officer smirked. "I'm sure you do. This was how it started. Not with violence, not with shouting, just with an assumption. An assumption that would cost some people everything." The Williams twins had arrived at Signature Flight Support's private terminal in perfect spirits. It was a Friday afternoon in late October. The Georgia sun hung low and golden over the tarmac. Inside the terminal, soft jazz played over hidden speakers. Leather couches sat arranged around glass coffee tables. A marble water feature burbled in the corner. Everything smelled like money and exclusivity. Marcus and Michael walked in side by side, identical in nearly every way. 27 years old, 6'2", athletic builds, clean fades, sharp jawlines, calm brown eyes. Marcus wore a charcoal suit with a white shirt, no tie. Michael wore navy blue with a subtle check pattern. Both carried leather weekend bags monogrammed, but not flashy. They moved with the kind of confidence that came from good upbringing, not arrogance. They were going home. Well, not home, but to Savannah, where their grandparents still lived in the house their father had grown up in. It was Grandma Evelyn's 80th birthday, and nothing short of an emergency would make them miss it. Their father had arranged the flight, a quick hop on one of the company jets. Casual. Convenient. The twins didn't think twice about it. They approached the VIP check-in counter where a woman in a burgundy blazer sat typing on a computer. Her name tag read, Ashley Monroe, Passenger Services Coordinator. "Good afternoon," Marcus said with a warm smile. "We're checking in for the 4:15 flight to Savannah." Ashley looked up. Her fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. Her eyes narrowed slightly as they traveled from Marcus's face to Michael's, then down to their bags, then back up again. She didn't smile back. "Flight number?" she asked flatly. "AX 917, Michael said. Ashley turned to her screen, clicked a few times, then frowned. "Names? Williams, Marcus and Michael." She scrolled, paused, scrolled again. Then she looked up with an expression that was somehow both bored and suspicious. "I don't see you on the manifest." Marcus blinked. "I'm sorry. You're not listed as passengers on this flight." Michael leaned in slightly, still polite. "There must be a mistake. Our father chartered the flight. We were confirmed yesterday." Ashley's eyebrow arched. "Your father chartered a Gulfstream G650? The way she said it, your father, dripped with disbelief. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said evenly. Ashley leaned back in her chair, arms folding across her chest. "That aircraft costs $75 million. Charter rates run about $12,000 an hour. You're telling me your dad just casually books that for a family trip?" "Yes," Michael said simply. Ashley stared at them for a long moment. Then she laughed. A short, humorless sound. "Right?" She reached for the desk phone. "Security, this is Passenger Services. I need someone at the front desk. We have a situation." Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. "Ma'am, we're not causing a situation. We're just trying to board our flight. You can't board a flight you're not on, Ashley said curtly. And showing up here claiming your daddy owns a private jet? She shook her head. That's not how this works. Michael pulled out his phone. I have the confirmation email right here. I don't need to see your emails, Ashley interrupted. I need to see legitimate credentials, verified bookings, not something you cooked up on your iPhone. Across the terminal, heads turned. A man in a polo shirt whispered to his wife. Two flight attendants near the coffee station glanced over, curious. This was humiliation. Quiet, polite, but absolute. The security officer arrived 90 seconds later. Rick Palmer, terminal security. Mid-40s, buzz cut, thick arms. The kind of guy who looked like he'd been a cop once and missed the authority. What's going on? He asked Ashley, not looking at the twins. These two claim they're passengers on the Savannah flight, Ashley said. But they're not on the manifest, and their story doesn't check out. Palmer finally looked at Marcus and Michael. His gaze was flat, assessing. You got boarding passes? Not physical ones, Marcus said. We have a digital confirmation. Digital? Palmer scoffed. Anyone can fake a screenshot. It's not a screenshot, Michael said, pulling up his email. It's from your company's booking system. Time-stamped. Confirmation code. Everything. Palmer glanced at the phone for half a second. Doesn't mean anything. He stepped closer, not threatening but definitely invading their space. Here's what I think, Palmer said slowly. I think you guys heard about this flight somehow. Maybe you work here. Maybe you know someone who works here. And you thought you'd try your luck. See if you could slip onto a rich guy's private jet. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. That's not what's happening. Then where's your father? Palmer asked. If he chartered this flight, where is he? He's not flying with us, Michael said. He's in Atlanta. We're visiting our grandparents. Palmer smiled like he'd just won something. How convenient. Ashley stood from her desk, emboldened by Palmer's presence. I've worked here for 6 years. I know every client, every owner, every regular charter. And I've never heard of any Williams family. That's because our father values privacy, Marcus said quietly. Privacy, Palmer repeated, smirking. Right? A small crowd had gathered now. Other passengers, staff members, even a couple of pilots leaning against the wall near the crew lounge. No one intervened. No one said, maybe we should actually check the system. They just watched. Palmer pulled out his radio. Tower, this is Palmer at the main terminal. Can you confirm the passenger list for flight AX 917? Static crackled. Then a voice. Stand by. The twins stood in silence, bags at their feet, surrounded by stares. The radio crackled again. Palmer, we show 2 passengers for AX 917. Williams, Marcus, and Michael. Confirmed at 1600 hours yesterday. Palmer's expression didn't change. He clicked the radio. Roger that. He turned to Ashley. System shows them. Ashley's eyes widened. That can't be right. Check again. I'm not checking again, Palmer said. Then he looked at the twins, suspicion still written all over his face. But just because you're in the system doesn't mean you're legitimate. People hack systems. It happens. Marcus exhaled slowly, struggling to keep his composure. Sir, we're not hackers. We're just trying to get to our grandmother's birthday. Aha! Palmer didn't sound convinced. Well, I'm not letting anyone board until we verify with the account holder. What's your father's name? Jonathan Williams, Michael said. Palmer wrote it down. And his company? Michael hesitated, not out of secrecy, but because he knew what was about to happen. Skybridge Aviation Group. The name hung in the air. Ashley's face went pale. Palmer's pen stopped moving. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ashley said, very quietly, That's impossible. Ashley grabbed her computer mouse and started clicking frantically. Palmer stood frozen, radio still in hand. Marcus watched them both, realization dawning slowly. They knew the name. They just didn't believe it. Skybridge Aviation Group. Ashley murmured, scrolling through something on her screen. Sid. Jonathan Williams. Her eyes went wide. That Jonathan Williams is... He's the majority owner of this airline, Michael finished quietly. Yes. Ashley looked up, face flushed. You're lying. We're not, Marcus said. Palmer stepped between them and the desk, voice hardening. Okay, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but Jonathan Williams is a billionaire. A billionaire. You expect me to believe his kids just show up here alone? No security, no assistance, no entourage. Michael finished. Yeah, that's exactly what we expect you to believe. Because that's who our father is. Ashley shook her head rapidly. I've seen pictures of Jonathan Williams. He's always at events, galas, investor meetings. He has security, staff. There's no way. There's every way. Marcus interrupted. His voice still calm but edged with something sharper now. Our father built his company from nothing. He doesn't flaunt. He doesn't parade us around. We live normal lives because that's what he wanted for us. Palmer snorted. Normal lives. Sure. He clicked his radio again. Control, this is Palmer. I need supervisor authorization for AX 917. Passengers are claiming to be related to the account holder. A pause. Then copy. Sending manager Novak to the terminal now. Ashley stood up, wringing her hands. I'm just trying to protect our clients. We get people all the time trying to access these facilities. I can't just let everyone. We're not everyone, Michael said, voice tight. We're passengers, with confirmed bookings, in your system. But what? Marcus stepped forward, and for the first time, there was real steel in his voice. But we don't look like we belong here? Is that it? Ashley flinched. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The terminal had gone completely silent now. The jazz music still played, soft, oblivious. A woman near the coffee station looked away, uncomfortable. Palmer moved between the twins and Ashley again, hand resting on his belt. All right, that's enough. You two need to step back and wait for the manager. We've been waiting, Michael said. Then wait some more. Outside, the Gulfstream's crew checked their watches. The captain radioed the tower again. Control, this is AX 917. We're supposed to depart in 10 minutes. Still no passengers. What's the status? The tower responded. Stand by AX 917. Terminal issue. The captain frowned but said nothing. Inside, the twins stood in the center of the terminal, surrounded by eyes but utterly alone. The terminal manager arrived 5 minutes later. David Novak, operations manager, early 50s, graying hair slicked back, expensive suit, the kind of man who'd spent his whole career managing wealthy people and had started to believe he was one of them. He walked in with the confidence of someone used to solving problems. What's the issue? He asked Ashley. She launched into an explanation, stumbling over her words, gesturing at the twins, pulling up the booking screen. Novak listened, nodding occasionally, then turned to Marcus and Michael. His expression was polite but cold. Gentlemen, he said smoothly, I understand there's been some confusion. Can you explain why you're here? Marcus took a slow breath. We're booked on flight AX 917 to Savannah. We presented ourselves for boarding. We have confirmation codes. We're in your system. And yet we've been detained for 20 minutes because your staff doesn't believe we're legitimate passengers. Novak smiled thinly. I'm sure you understand we have protocols. Private aviation is a very exclusive environment. We have to verify. You have verified, Michael interrupted. The system confirmed us. The tower confirmed us. What more do you need? Novak clasped his hands in front of him. What I need is to ensure the integrity of this terminal. We've had incidents before. People attempting to access flights they're not authorized for, using stolen credentials, falsified documents. We haven't falsified anything, Marcus said. Novak's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then you won't mind waiting while we contact the account holder directly to confirm your claim. Our father is in a meeting, Michael said. He's not going to appreciate being interrupted for something your system already verified. Nevertheless, Novak said, that's our policy. He gestured to Palmer. Keep them here. I'll make the call from my office. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Not with fear, but with the exhausting, bone-deep weariness of being doubted. Again. Always. How long is this going to take? He asked quietly. Novak checked his watch. As long as it takes. He turned and walked toward the back offices. Ashley returned to her desk, avoiding eye contact. Palmer stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the twins like they might bolt at any second. And the crowd kept watching. Some with pity, some with suspicion, none with action. 10 minutes passed, then 15. The twins stood near a window overlooking the tarmac, silent now, conserving their energy. Michael checked his phone. A text from their grandmother. Can't wait to see you boys. Flight on time? He didn't respond. Marcus stared at the Gulf Stream outside. Their father's jet, the one he'd built his empire to afford, sitting 50 yards away. So close. Unreachable. Finally, Novak returned. His expression was strange. Part confusion, part frustration. I wasn't able to reach Mr. Williams, he said. His office said he's unavailable. We told you he was in a meeting, Michael said. Novak ignored him. However, I did speak with his executive assistant. She confirmed that the flight was booked for 2 passengers named Williams. A flicker of hope. But, Novak continued, she couldn't confirm your identities. No photos on file. No descriptions. She simply said the booking was made and approved by Mr. Williams personally. So we're confirmed, Marcus said. You're listed, Novak corrected. That doesn't mean you're who you say you are. Michael's voice rose slightly. What exactly do you want from us? IDs? We can show you IDs. IDs can be faked. Passports. Also fakeable. Then what? Michael's composure finally cracked. What do we have to do to prove we're not criminals? Stand here and let you interrogate us until you're satisfied? Until we look trustworthy enough? Novak's face hardened. Your attitude isn't helping. Our attitude? Marcus stepped forward, and there was something dangerous in his calm now. We've been polite, patient, respectful. We've answered every question, provided every piece of information, and you still treat us like suspects. Because this situation is suspicious, Novak snapped. 2 young men show up claiming to be the sons of a billionaire, with no verification, no advance notice to staff. We don't need advance notice, Michael said. We're passengers. That's all we need to be. Novak's jaw clenched. Private aviation doesn't work like commercial flights. You can't just show up. We didn't just show up. We were invited. By the man who owns this company. The words echoed through the terminal. Novak went very still. Then he said, quietly and coldly, Mr. Williams owns Skybridge Aviation Group. He does not own this terminal. We operate under contract. And I have the authority to deny boarding to anyone I deem a security risk. Marcus stared at him. You're calling us a security risk. I'm calling this situation irregular. Because we're black. The word dropped like a stone. Novak's face flushed. That has nothing to do with. It has everything to do with it, Marcus said, his voice rising now, all pretense of calm gone. If we were white, you wouldn't have questioned us. You wouldn't have detained us. You would have smiled, scanned our passes and waved us through. That's not true, Ashley interjected weakly. Michael turned to her. Isn't it? Tell me. When's the last time you stopped a white passenger and accused them of faking their credentials? She said nothing. Palmer shifted uncomfortably. Novak straightened his tie, regaining his composure. Gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the terminal. If you'd like to file a complaint with Skybridge, you're welcome to do so. But you will not be boarding this flight today. The sentence hung in the air, final, unjust, absolute. Marcus felt something break inside him. Not his composure. Something deeper. The belief that being good, being educated, being right would be enough. It wasn't. It never was. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Novak smiled, thin, patronizing, victorious. I don't think I am. Marcus reached into his jacket pocket. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled out his phone. Palmer's hand moved toward his belt. Sir, put that away. I'm making a phone call, Marcus said. You can make calls outside. I'm making it now. He unlocked his screen, found the contact labeled Dad, and pressed call. It rang once. A calm, deep voice answered. Marcus. Even through the phone, the voice carried weight. Steady, grounded, the kind of voice that didn't rush or panic. Dad, Marcus said, his own voice tight. We're at the terminal. They won't let us board. A pause. What do you mean they won't let you board? They're saying we're not verified, that we're suspicious, that we might be impersonating your sons. Another pause, longer this time, and in that silence, Marcus could almost hear his father's mind working. Put me on speaker, Jonathan said quietly. Marcus tapped the screen. You're on. The terminal seemed to hold its breath. Jonathan's voice filled the space, calm, measured, but carrying an unmistakable authority. This is Jonathan Williams. To whom am I speaking? Novak's face had gone from red to pale in about 3 seconds. He stepped forward, voice shaking slightly. Mr. Williams, this is David Novak, operations manager at Signature Flight Support. Mr. Novak, Jonathan interrupted gently. Why are my sons not on my aircraft? Silence. Complete, crushing silence. Novak opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Sir, there was a miscommunication. We were unable to verify. Verify what? Jonathan's voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath now. They're in your system. They presented valid confirmation codes. They gave you their names. What exactly required verification? We have protocols for security. And did those protocols involve detaining 2 confirmed passengers for half an hour? Accusing them of fraud? Threatening to remove them from the terminal? Ashley had gone completely pale. Palmer stared at the floor. Novak stammered. Sir, I was simply trying to protect the integrity. The integrity of what? Jonathan's voice sharpened. Your terminal? Or your assumptions? The word landed like a hammer. Mr. Williams, I assure you, this had nothing to do with what, Mr. Novak? Say it. Novak's mouth worked soundlessly. You saw 2 young black men, Jonathan continued, his voice dropping to something cold and final. And you assumed they didn't belong. You assumed they were lying. You assumed they were criminals, despite every piece of evidence to the contrary. That's not. It is exactly what happened. And now you're going to tell me it was just a misunderstanding. Just protocols. Just procedure. Novak said nothing. Jonathan's voice shifted, still calm, but now carrying the full weight of authority. Mr. Novak, as of this moment, you are suspended pending a full investigation. Ms. Monroe, you as well. Officer Palmer, you're being placed on administrative leave. Ashley gasped. Palmer's head snapped up. Sir, you were just doing your job, Jonathan finished. And your job was to verify passengers, not to profile them. You failed. He paused. I'll be sending a team to review every interaction this terminal has had over the past year. Every complaint, every incident. And if I find a pattern, and I suspect I will, there will be consequences. Novak found his voice, desperate now. Mr. Williams, please. I have a family. So do I, Jonathan said quietly. And today, you humiliated them. The call went silent for a moment. Then Jonathan said, Marcus, Michael, is the crew ready? Yes, sir, Marcus said, his voice steady now. Then board the aircraft. I'll handle the rest. Thank you, Dad. Don't thank me. This should never have happened. The line went dead. Marcus pocketed his phone. The terminal was silent except for the soft jazz still playing in the background. Absurd. Oblivious. Novak stood frozen. Ashley looked like she might cry. Palmer's face was unreadable, and the twins picked up their bags and walked toward the tarmac doors. No one stopped them. As they stepped outside into the golden afternoon light, Michael let out a long breath. "You okay?" Marcus asked. Michael shook his head. "No, but I will be." They walked across the tarmac toward the Gulf Stream. The captain stood at the bottom of the stairs, waiting. He was an older black man, graying at the temples, with kind eyes and a knowing expression. "Mr. Williams, Mr. Williams." He greeted them with a nod. "Heard there was some trouble inside." "Nothing we couldn't handle," Marcus said. The captain smiled sadly. "I'm sure. But you shouldn't have had to." He gestured toward the stairs. "Your father called. Told me to make sure you were comfortable. Anything you need, anything at all, you just let me know." "Thank you, Captain," Michael said. They climbed the stairs and entered the cabin. The interior was elegant but understated, cream leather seats, polished wood accents, soft lighting. The kind of luxury that whispered rather than shouted. The twins settled into their seats. As the door closed and the engines hummed to life, Marcus looked out the window at the terminal. He could see figures moving inside, staff gathering, phones out, panic spreading. He felt no satisfaction, just exhaustion. The Gulfstream lifted off at 5:03 p.m., 48 minutes late. As it climbed into the autumn sky, a black Mercedes sedan pulled up to the signature flight support terminal. Jonathan Williams stepped out. He was 63 years old, but he moved with the energy of a man 20 years younger. Tall, broad-shouldered, salt and pepper hair cut close. He wore dark slacks and a simple button-down shirt, no tie, no jacket. Nothing that screamed wealth. He'd built Skybridge Aviation Group from a single-used charter plane 35 years ago. Worked 80-hour weeks. Slept in airports. Missed birthdays and holidays. Sacrificed everything to build something that would last. He'd done it for moments like this. Not the wealth, not the power, but the ability to protect his family. He walked through the terminal doors. Conversations stopped. David Novak stood near the check-in desk, pale and sweating. Ashley sat at her workstation, hands trembling. Palmer stood off to the side, arms crossed, trying to look composed but failing. Jonathan walked past them without a word and headed straight for the administrative offices. The terminal manager's assistant tried to intercept him. "Sir, Mr. Novak is currently—" "I'm not here to see Mr. Novak," Jonathan said calmly. "I'm here to see whoever's in charge of this facility." "That would be Mr. Novak." "Not anymore." Jonathan walked past her into the manager's office. Inside sat Patricia Hendricks, Regional Director of Operations for Signature Flight Support, mid-50s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She stood when Jonathan entered. "Mr. Williams, I just heard." "I'm sure you did." Jonathan closed the door behind him. "How long have you been Regional Director, Ms. Hendricks?" 12 years. "And in those 12 years, how many complaints have you received about discriminatory treatment at this terminal?" She hesitated. "I'd have to check the records." "Check them," Jonathan said, "because I'm going to request a full audit. And if I find out that this wasn't an isolated incident, if I find out that your staff has a pattern of profiling passengers based on race, age, or appearance, then Skybridge will terminate its contract with Signature immediately." Hendricks's eyes widened. "Mr. Williams, that contract is worth—" "I know exactly what it's worth," Jonathan said quietly. "Do you know what my son's dignity is worth?" She said nothing. "My sons," Jonathan continued, "are graduate students. Marcus has a master's in aerospace engineering from MIT. Michael has an MBA from Stanford. They've never been arrested, never caused trouble. They presented valid credentials and were treated like criminals." He leaned forward slightly. "Why?" Hendricks looked down. "I don't have an answer." "Then find one. Because if you can't explain why 2 confirmed passengers were detained, accused, and nearly removed from this terminal, then you have a systemic problem. And I will make sure everyone knows about it." He straightened. "I want Novak, Monroe, and Palmer terminated. Today." "Mr. Williams." "Today," he repeated. "And I want a full review of your hiring and training practices. I want bias training mandated for every employee. And I want a public statement acknowledging what happened and outlining the steps you're taking to prevent it from happening again. Hendricks nodded slowly. I'll make it happen. Good. Jonathan turned toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Yes. My sons didn't tell you who I was because they shouldn't have to. They're passengers. That's all they should need to be. He left without waiting for a response. In the terminal, Novak watched as Jonathan walked past him again. Mr. Williams, he called out desperately. Please, if I could just explain. Jonathan stopped. He turned slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried through the entire space. Mr. Novak, you had 30 minutes to explain. You chose to judge instead. He looked around the terminal, at the staff, the passengers, the people who'd watched and done nothing. Power, he said, doesn't announce itself. Shouldn't have to. My sons are brilliant, accomplished young men. But even if they weren't, even if they were just two regular passengers, they deserved respect. He looked directly at Novak. You didn't give them that. You gave them suspicion, humiliation, injustice. His gaze swept the room. All of you did. Then he walked out. The terminal remained silent long after he was gone. 3 weeks later, the email landed in inboxes across the entire Signature Flight Support Network. Subject: Mandatory policy changes, effective immediately. The message was clear. All staff would undergo comprehensive bias and sensitivity training within 30 days. New verification protocols. System checks first, questions second. Any passenger presenting valid credentials would be processed without delay. Complaints of discriminatory treatment would be investigated by an independent third party. Zero tolerance for profiling of any kind. David Novak was terminated. Ashley Monroe was let go. Rick Palmer was dismissed. Patricia Hendricks issued a public statement. On October 23rd, 2 passengers were subjected to unacceptable treatment at our Atlanta facility. They were questioned, detained, and humiliated based on assumptions rather than facts. This violated our values and the trust our clients place in us. We take full responsibility. We are implementing immediate changes to ensure this never happens again. We are committed to treating every passenger with the dignity and respect they deserve. The statement didn't name Jonathan Williams, but everyone in the industry knew. Skybridge Aviation Group headquarters. Jonathan sat in his office, reading the reports that had come in over the past few weeks. Dozens of complaints. Passengers of color who'd been randomly selected for additional screening. Young passengers questioned about how they could afford private flights. Women traveling alone asked intrusive questions about their male companions. Pattern after pattern after pattern. His assistant, Linda, knocked and entered. The board is ready for your call, sir. Jonathan nodded. Give me 5 minutes. She left. He picked up his phone and called his sons. Marcus answered. Hey, Dad. How's Savannah? Good. Grandma's birthday was perfect. We're flying back tomorrow. Commercial or private? Jonathan asked. Marcus laughed softly. Commercial. We need a break from private terminals. Jonathan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's not your fault. It is, in a way. I built a company in this industry. I should have known what it was like. You can't control other people's prejudices? Michael's voice came through. He joined on speaker. No, Jonathan agreed. But I can control who I do business with. And I can make sure my company doesn't tolerate it. What are you going to do? Marcus asked. Jonathan looked at the documents on his desk. Termination notices, policy changes, contracts under review. I'm going to make sure it means something, he said. What happened to you is going to be a case study. Every training session, every new hire orientation, every policy review. People are going to hear your story. Dad, not your names, Jonathan assured him, but your experience. Because if it can happen to you, my sons, with every advantage in the world, then it's happening to people with far less protection. And that ends now. Silence on the line. Then Michael said quietly, Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me. Just promise me something. What? Don't let this make you bitter. Don't let it change who you are. Marcus spoke up. It won't. We're okay. Good. That's all that matters. After they hung up, Jonathan sat in silence for a moment. Then he picked up the phone and dialed into the board meeting. It was time to get to work. Marcus and Michael Williams stood in the auditorium at Skybridge Aviation Group headquarters. It was the company's annual all-staff meeting. Over 800 employees gathered from offices around the country. Their father had asked them to speak. They'd said no at first. It was private, personal, painful. But Jonathan had said something that changed their minds. Your silence protects the people who did this. Your voice protects everyone who comes after you. So they stood on stage, looking out at hundreds of faces. Marcus spoke first. 6 months ago, my brother and I tried to board a flight at a private terminal. We had valid credentials. We were confirmed passengers. But we were detained, questioned, and nearly removed. Not because we'd done anything wrong, but because someone made an assumption. He paused. They assumed we didn't belong. They assumed we were lying. They assumed we were threats. Michael continued. And the worst part wasn't the accusation. It was the certainty, the absolute conviction that they were right to doubt us. Because in their experience, people who looked like us didn't fly private, didn't come from wealth, didn't deserve respect. The room was silent. Marcus looked directly at the audience. Some of you know this story. Some of you were part of the investigation. Some of you went through the training that came after. He took a breath. But here's what I want you to understand. This wasn't about one bad employee or one bad terminal. It was about a system that allowed assumptions to override evidence. A culture that valued suspicion over service. Michael stepped forward. Our father built this company on the principle that aviation should be accessible, professional, and fair. Not just for people who look a certain way or come from certain backgrounds. For everyone. That principle, Marcus said, saved us that day. Because when we called our father, he didn't ask if we'd done something wrong. He asked why we were being treated like we had. He smiled slightly. That's the difference. Assumption versus trust. Fear versus respect. Michael concluded, we're telling this story not to embarrass anyone or to relive a painful experience. We're telling it because it matters. Because someone in this room might one day be in a position to make a choice. Assume or verify. Judge or listen. Profile or protect. And we want you to choose better, Marcus said. The applause started slowly, then built, genuine, thoughtful, meaningful. When they stepped off the stage, their father was waiting. He pulled them both into a brief, tight hug. Proud of you, he said quietly. We learned from the best, Michael replied. The changes rippled outward. Skybridge implemented the most comprehensive anti-discrimination policies in the industry. Other aviation companies followed suit. Training programs evolved. Conversations started. Slowly, painfully slowly, culture began to shift. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was better. Marcus and Michael returned to the same private terminal one afternoon, this time to pick up their younger sister from college. The staff had changed. New faces. New attitudes. The woman at the desk smiled warmly. Good afternoon. How can I help you? We're here to meet a passenger, Marcus said. Williams, Sarah. The woman checked her screen. She just landed. Should be coming through in about 10 minutes. You're welcome to wait in the lounge. Thank you, Michael said. They sat down. No questions. No suspicion. No drama. Just service. As it should be. Marcus leaned back in his chair and looked at his brother. Feels different. It does, Michael agreed. Their sister emerged a few minutes later. Bright, energetic, talking a mile a minute about her semester. As they walked out together, she asked, was this the terminal where? Yeah, Marcus said. She looked around, then at her brothers. Must be weird coming back. Not really, Michael said. It's ours now. We changed it. Sarah smiled. Good. They walked into the sunlight. If the story moved you, hit subscribe. This channel exposes injustice, celebrates resilience, and reminds us that change is possible, but only when we demand it. These stories matter. Your voice matters. Let's keep the conversation going. Injustice thrives on assumptions. It hides in policies, in procedures, in the polite language of exclusion. But justice, real, lasting justice, arrives when someone refuses to accept it. When someone says, "This is wrong, and I will not be silent." Jonathan Williams didn't build an empire so his sons could flaunt wealth. He built it so they would never be powerless. And when they were humiliated, he didn't rage or threaten. He simply reminded the world of a truth it too often forgets. Power doesn't announce itself, but it always reveals injustice. And when it does, the reckoning is swift. You never know who you're looking at. The quiet person in the corner might be the CEO. The young passengers at the desk might be the owner's children. The unassuming elder might be a civil rights icon. But here's the deeper truth. It shouldn't matter. Every person deserves respect, not because of who they might be, but because of who you are. Dignity costs nothing. Assumptions cost everything. And in the end, the world remembers not what you assumed, but how you treated people when you thought no one was watching. Marcus and Michael Williams boarded their grandmother's birthday flight, and they changed an industry, not with anger, not with revenge, but with quiet, unshakable truth. Injustice thrives on assumptions. Justice arrives with accountability. And legacy? Legacy is built by those who refuse to let silence be the final answer.